I'm going to skip to the second to last slide, and this would be our proposal for consideration. So we understand that you don't want to put money in the trust, but we have concerns about the arbitrary and discretionary practices of the city and how it sets rates for its civilian population, and how they'd be subject to change over time, and how, you know, we have to question the fact, are they even fair? While they're permissible, does it look like it's something that's fair? So we'd be willing to agree that if the city contributes $29 million into a fund that would be dedicated for the medical benefits for the Police Officers Association, then from that point, same concept, we'll assume setting the rates, setting the benefits, making sure it's fair, making sure it's solvent. And we've got some talking points to go over on how we would manage that.
Who would do that?
Well, in this concept, the administration of the plan stays with the city, you know, under your city administrator. So just like you have right now, you've got, we all have United Healthcare, we all have access to the network, but we've got different rights.
Who would pay who would set premiums and who would set benefits?
Well,
The association.
Well, in our proposal, the association, but when he gets done, I'll come back and tell you what's inside the four corners. And I would suspect that it would be a joint venture. If you don't want to do it, we'll do it. Because we're going to give you a defined contribution health care plan, not a defined benefit plan, because you're going to have a fixed dollar amount. But if you want to do that jointly, that's inside the bounds of what I'll talk about in a minute, of all things that are still can be decided. I'll come back to that. Jeff, go ahead, I'm sorry, man.
Sure. So, you know, let's just say we're spending 30, or you're funding the plan at 32, whatever that number was, million. 29 million is an immediate recognition of savings in your budget process. We estimate at least $5.5 million in the next year. So that helps meet the goal of some budget certainty, you know, helping eliminate a concept I've heard lately called budget crowd out from public safety. On the years going forward, the contribution from the city to the plan would be benchmarked to payroll. And right now, the $29 million based on payroll is about 17.5% of payroll. Payroll meaning the base and longevity components of payroll. And we can verify those, but that would be the concept going forward, is that it's not tied to increases in the city's contribution to the plan or the city's liability are no longer tied to claims expense, but just strictly payroll, which actually escalates at a much slower pace than historical claims expense.
Tell me again what you're including in payroll.
What they refer to as base pay and longevity.
It's the same figure we use on retiree healthcare.
Oh.
No. It's the same way we do the 9.4 on retiree coverage. It's that same thing.
So next I'll go through the separate page that we handed out. I've got it in the presentation, just refer to it as trigger points, but this is an outline of the practices that would be used to prudently manage the plan and to make sure that everything's fair and that it stays solvent over time. So we start off with the city's contribution is $29 million. Over time, it escalates, but only as a function of total payroll. That way, I mean, it's not fair to say pay $29 million per year, and then let's say you cut the workforce by 200 people. It should be, the contribution level should be tied to the number of people that are participating in the plan. So that's the rationale and the logic behind that concept. Then what we would do and propose is that we do like any other benefits consultant, underwriter, etc. Is now we tackle the issue of what plans are going to be offered. You know, given the fact that there's a contribution from the employer, the city, of X amount of dollars, now we solve the algebra problem for what does it take in the way of benefit changes and payroll deductions. The same concept that the city has been proposing is that basically the concept that the benefits are too good and you don't pay anything. So we recognize that. but then take matters into their own hands to set a payroll deduction figure that is reasonable and prudent going forward. So the things that would be included in, the calculations, of course, same things that you do or should be doing with your own practices. Of course, there's the fees that you pay your administrator. We would propose that there be stop-loss reinsurance on this pool of people to protect itself from catastrophic loss. Now, in this concept, we could purchase it from your administrator or an outside stop-loss carrier, or if the city is adamantly opposed to doing that, then we would look to the city to say, okay, well then you act in the role of a stop-loss carrier. But we don't think that it's prudent to say that this pool of people is 100% credible and should assume all the risk. If the city feels that way, because this pool is still under your umbrella of your entire population, then we can work out a system to say, under this formula, claims up to a certain level count, claims over a certain level don't count. If you want to build in a factor of something, for like your own little pseudo premium for assuming risk, that's fine. But we don't, you shouldn't expose any smaller part of the population to really catastrophic losses over time. Bullet point number 3 just walks down all the things that go into the variable cost or the claims expense of how underwriters, benefit managers, benefit consultants assist their clients in setting rates. You take your losses, your claims data, you back out your reinsurance adjustments, you take into consideration any rebates that you might have negotiated from your pharmacy benefit manager, any recoveries that you're able to make into the plan from workers' comp or third-party liability. You take into consideration changes in enrollment, trends, etc. And that becomes a factor that you use for the claims component of your projections going forward. Also, we think it's prudent that you book some liability for incurred but unreported claims. That's a standard practice in setting the rate. Also, we would propose that there be at least a 10% cushion maintained at all times to help protect the plan from fluctuations over time. So those 2 points combined might be what some people refer to as a fund balance or a reserve. So I know in the task force, the city stated that their objective was to try to maintain 1 month's worth of claims paying capability. We actually think that's too thin, and we would propose that the combination of those 2 factors be at least 15%, which is about 1.8 months of claims paying capability. That way the plan stays properly funded. Then you would see at the bottom, the last bullet point, or second to last bullet point, is that this would be the trigger point. If all of the math and all of the projections indicate that you're going to dip below the 15% threshold, then that requires immediate action on behalf of the association to fix the problem. Fixing the problem by way of plan design changes or assessing more premiums from their employees or their plan participants. So by design, it should never get into the negative. There should never be an opportunity that you have to bail it out. Because we're proposing that you, like Mr. Dord said, you make a defined contribution over time, and we'll do exactly what you want, is we'll assume the risk, and we'll assume the responsibility, and we'll make the tough decisions. You gotta understand, their population isn't necessarily gonna be enamored with the decisions that they have to make. But rather than have themselves subjected to saying, well, right now there's 3 plans, but guess what, one's getting ready to go away. And right now, the consumer-driven health plan is priced at this level, but when the other one goes away at some point in the future, guess what? The rules change. So this provides some certainty and some security to the police officers on a going forward basis in terms of having having skin in the game, but also having the responsibility to help manage the plan as it goes forward and make sure that it stays solvent.
Just a couple of follow-up comments. I know you're going to help us review it, and I'm going to answer any questions to help you get that. I think in the beginning, any type of benefit plan like this, we're always looking at risk and who assumes the risk. Currently, the city has 100% of the risk, and so the plan is set, it's a defined benefit, and the money needed to make that goal is continuing to rise. So taking that into consideration, what we propose is a drastic change in the way things have been. We've heard what the council has said, the manager, the media, and others. This is a shared risk proposal, but it does convert the city from a defined benefit to a defined contribution. The dollar amount, cost will be set. You'll know exactly what they are from the first day, and then it'll go up based upon a percentage of payroll in small increments, and you have budget certainty. We think that then what's inside the box, Jeff, that you asked about, are all kinds of things. On the surface, we're looking at multiple plans, of course, consumer-driven plans. People keep what they got, pay for it. People have other options. We have to look at the population. We have to survey our members and determine the type of health care they're willing to pay for. So plan design, setting the rates to come to a number that will stay within the budget that we have. Putting the money in a dedicated fund that's still under the control of the city. But we have to, for our buy-in, we have to have the money in a place that we know the money's in the bank, that we can have either our own review board or a joint review board that monitors that and puts out the reports. And then when we can then see trend lines taking place, we can make decisions, okay? Because the city's amount of money is not going to change. There's only X amount coming in. So the participants, from the association, will have to make the choices. Do we increase rates or we lower benefits? How do we get under those deals? And then at open enrollment, the employee will choose. I like X and I'm going to pay for it. I'll take a lower cost plan, and we'll have a lot of the adverse selection things in place that people will have to make the choices. The money in there, if we get a little break and we make the changes, then that money will roll over. We're not taking, we know the 29 million is tight, because we think the city will be able to save in its budget probably close to 5.5 million this year alone. They will not have to budget that money. It goes from where they're paying today to what they're projecting to pay in 2015. We roughly think that's about 5.5 million. So if we do it right, then we're building it in. We're building in the cost of the third party. We're building the cost of building a reserve. And we think this will work. And we'll have our buy-in, and the city will obtain the objectives we think were articulated to us.